So you heard him there. For more on the latest developments, we turn to our D.C. correspondent, Bofta Yimam. Both the sanctions are adding up, but are they making a difference?
That's the question. And, Sharon, there's, clearly sanctions every week. We're seeing it almost every other day being placed on Russia. But is it enough to sway Putin? It seems actually that he's intensifying his attacks. As you mentioned, we just saw that footage coming out of Ukraine of the nuclear power plant and Russian forces taking that over. And so we're seeing that intensity of the attacks, Putin not backing down. If anything, he seems to be going so hard, making sure that they force their hand at some concessions, what he's looking to see going forward. Meanwhile, we know that the President Biden has been talking about the oligarchs, of course, and saying that, we're going to put more bans on them from traveling to the US. But here's the thing, in the long term, some experts are saying the sanctions could pull China and Russia together economically and threaten the dollar's dominance globally. Meanwhile, though, again, sanctions have been placed, as you mentioned. The State Department also saying those involved in Russia's disinformation campaigns will be targeted. The U.S. is imposing additional export controls on Russian oil and gas refining. Some of these sanctions may take some time to be felt, so we'll keep an eye on that. As for the humanitarian relief stateside, the Department of Homeland Security announced yesterday it will allow Ukrainians to remain in the U.S. under temporary protected status. About 75,000 people could be eligible for the status, which lasts for 18 months. Meanwhile, the second round of talks between Ukraine and Russian delegations seemingly ended nowhere right now. Nothing's been documented as far as what could take place going forward, any agreements. Putin warned Ukraine that it must quickly accept the Kremlin's demand. We've heard it before, we're hearing it again, demilitarization and declare itself neutral, renouncing its bid to join NATO, which Ukraine has not been willing to do. Ukraine did make a plea to the West, though, this week to close the skies over the country's nuclear plants. But a no-fly zone has been ruled out since the move would pit Russian and Western military forces against each other. The Biden administration says it's never going to take diplomacy off the table, but no talks with Putin are lined up at this time.
Now is not the moment. We're not planning a meeting between them or an engagement or a call. The president's been very, very clear about that. But we'll have those discussions internally and weigh the range of factors.
There's so much to be said about Ukraine, including just the most recent statement by the readout from the French on the Macron-Putin conversation. I don't know whose analysis it is, but the readout was that the worst is yet to come. There's more bad to come. So it's pretty horrible.
And you mentioned at the top, Sharon, 1 million refugees have escaped Ukraine. One thing we can say is that about 500,000 of those are children. This humanitarian crisis is growing. We also know there's an additional 1 million in Ukraine who are displaced, seeking shelter wherever they can. And again, as you just heard Speaker Pelosi say, it's only expected to get worse. We know Germany has been one of those countries that has taken in about 18,000 refugees just in the past 7 days.
Yeah, the crisis is definitely growing. And, then there's those who can't leave, the children who are very sick at one of Ukraine's largest hospitals. So it's just a nightmare. Bofta Yimam, thank you for keeping us updated on this one. You'll be back with more, I'm sure, in the days ahead.